Greetings everyone, Hagar here. This is a follow-up video to a video series I just recently uploaded regarding Obama and Fallen Angel TV. There was a couple of details that I forgot to include, as well as additional things that I ended up stumbling upon. So I just wanted to continue in that revelation. The first thing was I forgot to end the video with mentioning, remember in part 1, I brought up this image and I was saying, I know they probably claim this is an eagle, but it's really the phoenix, represents the phoenix rising. That's how it all connected. And I was saying, keep this image in mind, and the phoenix will win. The Obama television shows was eventually connected to Apple. And the Apple iPhone, the Holy Spirit allowed me to interpret and re-scramble, put it in the correct order, that word iPhone X, to spell out the phoenix. As marking this time period in these days as the days of the phoenix rising. That's how it loops back around to the initial image I showed you with the Nazi spirit symbolizing the rise of the phoenix. Now, obviously, Hitler is someone, and I'm pretty sure others in history, he is someone who ascribed or desired to become the phoenix, but he never made it. He never rose back up. He's just someone who, he tried, it was cut short, he failed early, he's no longer on the scene, he's gone, he's just something in history of the past. So when a lot of people want to bring up Obama's just another Hitler or another Antichrist or another version of Antichrist, it's just another spirit. Yes, it's the same spirit at work. However, all of those people in the past did not ever achieve 100%. They never went on to fully achieve what Obama has achieved. Their attempts, there can be many antichrists and many people attempting to climb up through the ranks of that spirit and make it all the way. But those people were never fully successful, obviously. Okay, that's the difference. So you have to understand that when you talk about, oh, that's just another, this is just business as usual. We had lots of these people before. That spirit has always attempted to come on the scene early before its appointed time, constantly trying to get it done and build it. But as we can clearly see in all of those instances in the past, those plans were not allowed to continue. They were destroyed and knocked down. They were prevented from moving forward in that agenda because it wasn't the appointed time according to the Lord. And so the Lord always had either a war, either had that person get killed. The Lord always came against it and knocked it down and prevented it from going any further. These people from the past, such as Hitler and all these other people, they didn't make it to that full indwelling of that spirit. You can have the same spirit as something. Let's just use an example. Let's just say I struggle with the spirit of pride and another person struggles with it as well. Maybe I only have a certain portion of the spirit of pride. Maybe it's just at 5% and it's just some pesky little thing that every now and then I may struggle with. Okay, but let's just say another person, they may be filled with the spirit of pride 70 or 80% and may be a very big part of their personality. They may be indwelt with that spirit to a different capacity or fullness. It's the same thing. Just because you have other versions or other antichrists who all operate under the same spirit, you can have different levels or different levels of saturation of a spirit. I hope that makes sense for you guys. It doesn't have to mean you have 100% indwelling of a totality of a spirit just because you may operate under the same spirit as something. And so these people from the past didn't have that full 100% possession. There's going to be a figurehead, which is the Antichrist, who's going to have 100% of that possession and of that spirit within him. And that's never been allowed to happen before because A, it wasn't the appointed time. Okay, if the Lord had allowed that to come on the scene back in the 20s and 30s or back in ancient times with all these other characters, people bring up whatever his name is, the guy in the temple of ancient times, those were just shadows and types of the same spirit and person that never fully manifested and made it to the finish line because the Lord did not have his counterbalance war plan in place. So it wouldn't make sense for the Lord to let the anti and the opposite and the false version of him rise up if his church had not yet spread across the world, his gospel hadn't yet preached across the whole earth. He hasn't yet raised up his saints and warriors in the appointed time, his army. So that's why the Lord has always held this spirit back and not let it complete that plan because it wasn't the appointed time. But now we're in the appointed time where the Lord has his army. The Lord has his gospel going forth throughout the whole world. The Lord has his counter-war battle plan to match and overcome what the enemy is trying to do. So that's the huge difference. And we know that Hitler is someone who, although he killed a lot of people, you can't compare. I mean, it was really, you just can't compare what he did. His reign, the things he did was very localized when you compare it to what the Antichrist is going to go on to do and having a global worldwide influence on people. His influence was mainly just over the German people. And his allies, they were just with him because they wanted to, they also were under an evil spirit and they wanted to profit from the situation. So he didn't have the whole world under his influence. It was mainly just people in his country. Where we have Obama has worldwide influence in not every country, but almost every different culture on earth and every different planet, every different nation, not just America. And if you've been walking in the spirit and learning and studying, you will already know that. So, moving on. Speaking back on the subject of this Antichrist television programming, see, this is another example of how Hitler, that spirit at work within him, tried to rise up within him, but it was cut down prematurely before it could finish, because it's saying here that let me just go over here. So I informed you guys of how Hitler and the Nazis had television programming, just like Obama is now about to come out with television programming. And so this article is just sharing that Hitler had planned a Big Brother style television network to broadcast Nazi propaganda. So this is what he had planned. So he achieved having television programming in Germany, but it only made it technology-wise, and it only made it to a certain point. When the war happened, obviously he was defeated, and all of that was kind of cut short in the middle. Okay? But this is just showing how they uncovered that his plans went well beyond what he was able to achieve. He had plans of putting up like mega screens in public, not just in your home, but in public. It's saying he wanted it in public places such as laundromats, so housewives could be inundated at, out at the market. You would have these big jumbotron television screens. As you can see, his vision was too futuristic for the technology that they had available at the time. Okay? So this was not the appropriate appointed time. Whereas we parallel that with Obama, now we are in the technology age where the Antichrist spirit that was at work in Hitler is finally being realized in Obama, because he's in his appropriate time era where we have Megatron TVs broadcasting in Times Square, where we have a cell phone and a computer and a TV in every single home across the country and across the globe, where we have satellite feeds and cable TV and Wi-Fi. So all of the parts of the system are now in place. And they're just going into what he wanted and hoped to have happen, but he never fully achieved, obviously. So yeah, just saying creepy things like he wanted to have TV screens inside of the laundromat to brainwash housewives while they're doing their laundry. Let's see what else we have. These were some of the programs that he intended on coming out with, but obviously it was cut short when he was overthrown and destroyed. So you just have here Family Chronicles. These are some of the prototypes for programs he wanted to have, depicting a wholesome Aryan life for a young German couple that the rest of the population could model themselves after. This is very key. We're seeing that same false peace spirit at work now playing out with Obama, because right here we're seeing that Hitler tried to have this kind of undercover, wholesome, forefront, this wholesome vibe going on in his brainwashing and programming, where they, it was just like the birds chirping outside, but yet you have this programming on every single corner. He wanted it in public places, at the market, at the laundromat, while housewives are just minding their business, doing their laundry. Everything's normal and wholesome. You have this program called the Family Chronicles, where it's just going to be the wholesome daily life of the Aryan family, which the rest of the population was to model themselves after. And that's exactly what we have with the Obamas. This clean, perfect, pretty little picture, family unit, quote unquote, no scandal has ever been in this White House. The perfect, wife, the perfect two daughters, and this loving, loyal, smart, intelligent, committed family man. It's just this fake, peaceful, wholesome picture being projected that most of the fallen and deceived world, that's what they seek to emulate. It doesn't take much to just look on social media that people hold the Obamas in such high regard. It's like the perfect family that you wish you could be a part of. It's the perfect family. Women, we should ascribe to be more like Michelle Obama. Men, you should ascribe to be more like the dad. Okay? It's the same exact propaganda and spirit at work. That's working undercover deceitfully. Let's see what else we have. And then obviously even in George Orwell's vision of the future, this is the exact type of thing that was very key to this dystopian society or state-ran world. This technology influence in television and media was a big part of that, as he saw it, or as he told it. Let's see, what is it? Anything else in here? And it was just a very big brother concept that he wanted to put forth, but wasn't allowed to complete that work. Now we have cameras in every home, on every corner. We have satellites that can look down on every street and every home. We have drones. So we know it's the appointed time for this work to come to fullness. And so I just wanted to share that with you guys. There was something else in here. If I can find it, then I'll close out. And this is just saying that there was a race between Nazi Germany, Britain, and America to have the first regular television broadcast. So actually Germany won the race, as you can see from the article. I'm right here. So they were actually the very first ones to come out with a regular television broadcast programming. And they beat out a year earlier than BBC, CBS, and NBC. Obviously, America and Britain. So we see that this spirit was actually the originator. They were the very first ones to come out with television programming. And now we have that same spirit at work, where he's going to be coming out with television programming. So that's a very key part of this system rising up and taking power and control and influence. So that's very interesting that the Nazis actually were the first ones. It was one more thing in here. And they're just saying that all of the programming on their, so-called programming on television, between programs of cooking, exercise, leisure pursuits, they had all these normal programs on, but nestled in between it was the propaganda constantly being projected out and brainwashing the masses and the public. And they would just hide it and tuck it in with normal, everyday, wonderful things, like they said, like cooking programs and exercise, and I'm pretty sure things like sports. Just like we now have Obama getting his hands into sports at the secret Boston MIT event, the Sports Analytic and Technology Conference, which was a secret, top secret event. Now he's getting his hands on that. See, he's stretching those tentacles out into every field of life and influence. Let me see. Oh, here it is. They're just saying large-scale events were covered in detail. And they're just showing a picture of the TV cameras of the Nazi Party, Congress in Nuremberg, and International Hunting Exhibition. Here goes another 37 alarm warning in 1937. So I had noticed that and just wanted to share it with you guys. Closing out, speaking of giants, speaking of these tech giants, what I was covering, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, helping the beast to rise and influence and power. What I'm getting from the Holy Spirit is that right now, what we're doing, observing, exposing, teaching against, preaching against, warning about these things, we are the modern day versions of the spies. We're spying out the land. God's people we are. So, if you not familiar with this, when it came time to Moses and the children of Israel to first go get the land that the Lord promised them, they had to first send out spies just to get an observation of what was happening before they could go in and conquer it and retrieve it for themselves. And when they did that, the majority of the spies that were sent were afraid because when they got there, they found giants. I'll leave the scripture below so you can read it if you're not familiar. But as you can see here, they're just afraid and coming back and saying, oh no, we can't take the promised land. Because the giants there eat people, the inhabitants. And they saw giants there that were like grasshoppers. in our own sight. So, in ancient times, there were literal and physical giants. Nephilim, sons of Anak, the fallen ones. And the Lord's people had been sent to go spy out the land to retrieve it. And so we're facing the same thing today. And what I keep telling you about the tech giants, all of, like I said, the exposing, watching, teaching, preaching against, warning against, we're doing against these platforms and companies and peoples. We're spying out the land that these giants who are at work on behalf and through the fallen angels. They're occupying earth right now, which God originally created for his children, for it to be our territory and our promised land. But they're currently occupying something that belongs to us. And so right now we're spying out the land that the giants currently hold authority over. And so why do you think their centralized headquarters, when you talk about Silicon Valley, California, Los Angeles is now gearing up to be the second Silicon Valley. All of the tech companies have their central location in this area of Los Angeles. And I covered this in another video. Los Angeles, the city of lost angels or fallen angels. It's not a coincidence that they all gravitated towards this location on earth to set up their headquarters for these tech giant companies. Okay, and this is just, when I saw this article, that there's 5 major tech giants, Apple, Amazon, Google, Facebook, and Microsoft. It immediately reminded me of the 5 stones that David got to kill Goliath, the 5 smooth stones that he picked up. And, when it reminded me of that, I remembered that Goliath also had brothers. And so these 5 tech giant companies can be likened to Goliath's brothers. Because we always hear about Goliath, but we forget he did have brothers. So these tech giant companies are the equivalent of Goliath's brothers, his assistants, his support to help him build his kingdom. And then Obama, the actual Antichrist, will be likened to Goliath himself. And you can see all the 666 symbolism when it goes into describing, Goliath and details about him. So I just thought that was very interesting that I noticed that. And then the last thing, this article is admitting that 2017 became a turning point for the tech giants. And it's just saying that years and years from now, we're going to look back on 2017. There's our number 17 again, referencing this season and this year. 17 as a turning point of when these tech giants went forward. And that how everything they're building in the future and for the future really, it didn't begin in 2017, but it was a monumentous shift and turning point. So, I just wanted to include those little tidbits for you guys. God bless you, and I hopefully will see you soon, Lord willing.